Hello YouTube, got a Nissan Qashqai in, the CVT Gearbox. Came in because it was juddering. I think we know what the cause is. Pretty typical of one of these. So I'm going to hand you over to Brendan, who's going to pull the gearbox apart, have a look, replace the bits that need placing, and we're going to get it back in, get the car gone.
Hi guys, so we're going to start this rebuild off with undoing the bell housing bolts, 12mm bolts on this one. And with most autos you're going to start by taking the bell housing off, not the back way. There we go, give the bell housing a slight tap and then start to remove it. Dowels are quite sticky on these, so give a good tap around the dowels and there we go, off she comes. Then you can see the internal of the gearbox. I've just taken the diff out. You can see the gear that runs the diff, there we go, together. And that's now the bell housing turned upside down. So you've got a load of ancillary items to take off that hold the linkage in, hold the clutch packs in, and these e-torques are going to take the plate that holds down the reverse pressure plate. There we go, the e-torques are just there. There we go, so we've got an oil weight that we need to take out as well. To one side, 10mm bolts. Get the parking mechanism out of the way, enjoy a good tune. So underneath the gear that drives the oil pump there is a circuit. We've got to open the circuit out and pull the gear up. It's a little bit tricky to do, especially with gloves that are too big for you. There we go, place it to one side. And there it is now with that little chain being driven. And there's your circuit. And now we're going to take off the oil plate now. What this plate does is it covers the oil pump. And the plate also goes onto the input shaft. Common failure points on these boxes: the input shaft bearing will fail, and that will allow the input shaft to run out of alignment. That will cause you to lose drive, and also the gearbox will be very, very noisy. Take the plate out, undo the bolts. There we go. That's your input shaft. That is what connects into your torque converter. Take the bearing out, and the bearing will stay in the case, and then underneath the bearing you'll have a shim. Depending on what type of bearing you can install the normal bearing that used to be in the older style, or there's an upgraded bearing. I'll take the shim out as well. Sometimes it looks like part of the casing, so be very careful, or sometimes it can come out on the back of the bearing. There we go. So what we're going to be doing now is the linkage is attached by 2 pins. One pin is just a pull out, the other pin you'll have to punch through. The reason why I'm rotating the shaft there is because sometimes if you knock the pin out and the shaft's not rotated in the right action, you can bottom it out on the casing, and it can cause a lot of issues trying to get it out. So 2 punches, one to start it off and then one to follow it through. Just checking we've got clearance before I knock it through. And we have. Wonderful. And there you can see all of the gearbox. Inside it, you can still see the gear at the bottom of that there. That's poking through from the belt and pulley system that we've got. And then what I'm doing now is I'm taking off the valve body pan, and that will expose the valve body itself. As you can see, that shaft that I was knocking the pin out of goes all the way through to the valve body and is actually held in place by a nut. That nut is connected to the lever that goes into the valve body and controls the manual valve. So when you're moving your gear stick from P, R, N, D, that is what's rotating inside the gearbox. Someone wants to know something, so I'm just letting them know. There we go, and the pan's off. What you'll find is a lot of debris in these. We see fuzz on the magnet from as little as 15 to 20,000 miles when the belt is wearing in, and that was the manual valve that you just seen there. The filter's held in by bolts, so unbolt the filter comes off, and just keep an eye for the O-ring, because the O-ring will always stay in the hole. If you are doing a service on one of these vehicles and you are changing the filter, it's quite common for people to double seal them with 2 O-rings because they've not seen it come out. There you go, there's me looking for it, and there it is, it's down in the hole. There we go. I'm doing the linkage now, different size socket. now the lever's off, knock it through, and you can take that shaft out. Sometimes they come out smoothly, sometimes they need a little tap. There we go. Organise the tools, it's too much in the way. Now you're looking for specific bolts on these. They are a number 7 and they have quite a thick circle on them. There is a different number 7, but that has a thinner circle on top. You don't want to be touching them. You can see by the length of the bolt what one's what. You do not want to be taking the shorter ones out. When there's oil spread all over them, there is quite difficult to tell the difference between the two sometimes. When you take the last bolt out, you'll see the valve body move slightly, and then it is quite easy to take out. The only thing that is going to stop it coming out is where the plug goes in, there's an O-ring that goes around, and that can be a little bit difficult. All I do is give it a tap with a rubber hammer, dead blow hammer. You don't want to be breaking the plastic on the harness. Just give it a little tap just to free it up. And there we go. Happy days. One valve body. This is sprung loaded, so when you're taking this off it's quite difficult, but then once it pops it will pop up at you, and it's held on by a dowel that is quite hard. There we go. We're now taking out the reverse piston. Piston operates reverse. Quick hand wipe, ready to take the clutches out. And there you have it. That's your Planetary gear with your sun gear and your frictions and steels. Get a little O-rings in there. Just removing the pump now. Now Allen key bolts in this one. There we go, placed to one side. That's your oil pump. We take these apart, we fit a modified component inside them so that it doesn't restrict the oil flow, because these can jam up and reduce oil flow. Now we're going to start removing the back belt system, pulley system, variator system. It's called all sorts of things, but it has the primary and secondary pulley inside, controlled by a belt. This is what makes the gearbox a CVT. Continual variable transmission. Again, 12mm bolts. And there we have it. They are now out. What you can see there is the gear on the right hand side. Underneath that you've got your primary and secondary pulley driven by the belt, and that's the scoring that happens. So the belt constantly moves up and down that pulley system, and it will score the belt that it's driven on. As a result of this, it can leave a lot of debris inside the vehicle, inside the gearbox, and it can cause the valve body and the valve bores to become oversized. There's also two types of oil for CVTs. The CVT oil that you require for this type of one is a gold colour. If you go to most local motor factors or anyone that you can buy oil from, just be careful that you don't get supplied with the red oil. For me, it's just not good enough quality for what this gearbox needs. And it comes out eventually. So now all the balls and the filters are out, we're going to now remove the solenoids. First of all, you've got to take out that pin. That pin keeps the solenoid from coming out fully. And what we'll do now is clean these solenoids and then test them in isolation. So on our test rig, we have the facility to test the valve body as an entire entity. And then we've also got the ability to do the solenoids on their own. What we do for each valve as well is vacuum testing, which is quite a common thing for valve bodies. You create a seal over the area that you want to test, and with a test rig you perform a vacuum test and you can see how much leak off or how much gap you have on your valve and whether or not it's in tolerance. If you have too much of an air gap, you'll not get enough pressure going to the required areas that need it, and the gearbox will not perform. And a quick clean up. There we go. More oil coming out. Lovely. So most of the valves are held in by plungers, and you have to release the pressure off the plunger to take the pin out. Once you do that, you've got to be careful it doesn't fly across the room. I've had enough of the gloves, they're coming off. As you can see all the dirt inside the valves. And because there's debris in there, they're not coming out very nicely. This valve body is quite a nice valve body to do, there's not a lot to them. You've only got 5 holes, including the manual valve, so there's only 3 that you need to remove really. 4, sorry. So on the bottom of that there's a valve as well, checks pressure. And if they're not moving smoothly either, there you go, you can see inside there. If they're not moving smoothly, you will get bangs, bumps, pulses when you're driving the car. You'll also see the rev counter begin to fluctuate as well. Because the valves are stuck, instead of trying to put a screwdriver down them and push them out and be quite aggressive like that, I'm trying to get the valve to free on its own accord. See if a bit of brake cleaner helps. And we finally got it out. There she is, sports fans. So now all of that will be put into the wash, give it a good clean, put back together, ready for testing. What you can see here is our valve body test machine going through the procedure. So whilst that's testing, I'm back to the oil pump and we are going to fit our Transco modified component. Now what this does, when the flow valve is in there, it scores up and it will not move up and down inside the casing properly. So as you can see from the instructions there, you replace that valve inside the sleeve, then put the spring in, and that goes into your pump. If it falls out, have another go. This pump has already been taken apart and cleaned and put back together. There we go. With these, you can see now the difference between the pulley system. There is absolutely no scoring on this system whatsoever. And we'll always use red silicone on these as well, because that is what the manufacturer use, and it seals a hell of a lot better than normal black silicone. There we are, so we're placing the back casing, centre casing and back casing back together with a little help from the rubber hammer. There you can see the sealant starting to spread out. Just get over them dowels and then put the bolts in. So what I do, I'll always put 2 bolts in first and then flick it over and do the remainder of those bolts the right way round. There we go, remainder of the bolts going in now. Oil pump going back in. Line it up, make sure you've got your seal underneath. Allen key bolts back in. always check them by hand as well, because these little snap-on batteries are infamous for just giving up. Frictions and steels have already been prepared. I didn't think that was worthy of being on camera because it's quite boring. And these are all now going to go back into the gearbox. They can only go in a certain way on the steels. And if I've put them upside down when I've laid them down, they can be a bit finicky to work out what way they go in. There we go, so there's the gear going in, and then the Planetary gear set going in as well. Just making sure it all aligns in, and what I'll probably end up doing is pulling it back out and fitting it all in as one. There we go. Just lining it all up so it goes in smoothly. Never force these in because you'll end up chipping gears. There we are, make sure everything rotates freely, and it's spinning the gear opposite. So again, frictions and steels have already been prepared and are now just being placed back into the box. Again, they can only go in one way, and that can be a little time consuming just lining them up. I've also got cutouts on these frictions as well, and they also need to be in line. There we go, so that's all sat down now. Give it a last wiggle, make sure everything's lined up. That's your thickest one going on last. Lining it up again. So your reverse piston's going back in with the springs on it. There we are. And there you can see it all back into the casing. Just before the cover goes back down. This cover will sit a little bit proud, get it on the dowels, and it will go down nice and easy. There we we are, just double checking we've got a good gap. Ready to close the gap with those lovely E-Torx bolts. Always do this bit by hand as well, because if you go down with a gun and it isn't in line and the gun's a little bit excited, you could nick something. Whee! There we go. So I wasn't happy with how it was sitting the first time round, so I took it back up, put it back down, and then it sat down nicely. There we go. I'd rather check twice so we don't have to remove it. So that there is the chain that runs the pump. Pump goes in, new bearing has already been fitted into the casing, and the stator goes in with it. Check the preload's okay. Once you change the bearings, sometimes the shims are not accurate for what you need anymore. So I'm just checking the end float and then rotating. I have already measured the shims, measured the bearings, so this is quite a quicker version of how it should look. Clip goes back into the groove for the oil pump. With the chain and the gear that runs the oil pump. If you get these misaligned, they can be a bit of a sod to line back up. There we go. They must go down evenly. If you get them slightly angled towards each other, they can be a right nightmare to get in. So get them down in tandem and they'll slide right in. Open up that circlip and that gear will drop into place. There we go. And there you have it. Input shafts in, stators in, pump gears in, parking pull with gears in. I'm putting the pin back in with the linkage now. So pin's being put back into the linkage, stop it rotating. There we go, so put the remainder of the linkage in now. Grease up the diff bearings. Apply the sealant, ready for the bell housing to go back on. Lower the bell housing down and it should fall down nice and easy. Again, you shouldn't have to be whacking this on. There we go. Put your bolts in. Join the two together. Goodbye socket. Always check bolts by hand, you never know. Last one there, use a spanner on it. There's no room to get a ratchet in or a socket with an extension. Good old spanner work. There we go, the gearbox is all back together, just awaiting a valve body. What we're going to do first though, is we're going to leak test it. So this piece of equipment bolts onto the gearbox and we can pressure test the relevant compartments to make sure that they're holding hydraulic oil and that we don't have any leaks in the system. So we bolt on a special plate. That plate fills the compartments up with relative oil, and there we go.